Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. Here's your host, Russ McClellan.
Hey, how's everybody doing in the land of COVID? One more time, another show, another segment, or two or three or four. This time we're going to bring some value. I know we are because I have Starleigh Smith in the house. Hi, Starleigh.
Hey, Russ. How are you?
I'm good. And I have EC's. Baena.
Hello.
How'd I do?
Baena.
Baena.
Maybe four more and you'll get it.
All
It's
right,
okay.
EC's Baena.
Baena. Somebody's going to get it before.
So here's the deal, guys. You're listening to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. I appreciate it very much. We've been on there about 3 years, having a good time, breaking these things into segments, putting them all over the land of social media, inside the land of COVID. Today, we're talking about laws with Starleigh. Starleigh is an attorney from Florida who is transitioning to be an attorney in Washington and has taken a position with Jeffers, Danielson, Sonn, and Aylward.
Yes.
How is that?
It's great.
Right. And here's what we're going to talk about. EC's, by the way, is our new team leader. So she is going to be commanding the growth and retention and coaching of our company. So she is the person that gets the front office.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so nice to meet you.
You
So
also,
nice to meet you.
yes.
Yeah, we're having fun. We're pushing 80 real estate agents out of about 400 total in all of the offices combined in North Central Washington. We've done it in about 3 years. And I'd like to think that we're bringing value to everybody, not just in real estate, but all types of mindset work and things that we love to do around here just to help people change their life. And man, the law is funny. The last couple of years, Starleigh, you probably, as an attorney, you're probably thinking, wow, change upon change upon change, and a lot of unprecedented stuff. And then also coming from Florida's, like ideology or political, like the way they look at the world versus Washington on the West Coast. Talk about two different ends of the spectrum.
Yes. Two
Right.
different ends of the spectrum is probably an easy way to say that.
Yeah. And so let's just kind of dive in. What we're trying to do today is help investors, i.e. landlords, that maybe are facing situations where they have a mortgage to pay and they have tenants that either can't pay because of joblessness or adversity that has hit them. Not, it's not like a lot of people said, hey, I'd like to get fired today. And a lot of bosses furloughed a lot of people without their permission, right? So there's people facing hardship that they're just unable to make their rent payments. There's other people that are choosing to not make their rent payments and buy RVs and Ferraris, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe Volkswagen Bucks. I don't know, whatever turns you on. But then that puts the landlord, when they're not getting income, it's the old way. We were able to evict for non-payment pretty quickly. There was a process. So maybe you could explain kind of what is the law? What's on the books these days, and what has happened recently with the governor of the state of Washington signing some changes into our Landlord-Tenant Act, I understand.
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes made since this last legislative session. And Washington, like most of the country, and the CDC issued eviction moratoriums at the beginning of COVID to prevent people from being kicked out of their homes for non-payment. What the Washington legislature did, which is actually kind of brilliant in their forethought, they also passed some temporary laws that are in effect until mid-2023 that kind of hold over some of the moratorium protections for tenants who cannot pay because of COVID-related job loss or financial stress. And so obviously the eviction moratorium expires September 31st, which will be out by the time this airs. But the new law, the temporary law, creates a system of hoops that landlords have to jump through if they want to evict someone for unpaid rent after the moratorium expires.
Right. So let me get. There's probably people out there thinking right now, well, hey, I heard on the radio or on the TV that the Supreme Court struck down the CDC's rule. So what's that about?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court did strike down the CDC moratorium. The CDC moratorium, in its most recent iteration, was more narrowly tailored than previous moratoriums. It was, in theory, only applied to counties who are experiencing high or substantial spread of COVID, but at the end of the day, that applied to 97% of the counties in the country. And so a plaintiff who had already challenged the moratorium came back to the court and said, look, they extended it again. We need you to get rid of this because it's not lawful. And the Supreme Court agreed. They said, look, the CDC did not have the authority to issue a nationwide moratorium. If Congress wanted a nationwide moratorium, they needed to do it. So basically, the Supreme Court said the CDC acted beyond the scope of their power. So the nationwide CDC moratorium was struck down. But Washington has its own moratorium that operates independent of the CDC moratorium, and that was issued under the governor's emergency powers. And so because he has the authority to act in an emergency, he can issue these proclamations, eviction moratoriums. They're formally called proclamations, to stop evictions, even though the CDC can't issue its own nationwide eviction moratorium at the same time.
So is that common where I guess it would be common in a lot of different areas of laws where the feds have one rule. The federal Supreme Court says this is lawful, this is unlawful, this is constitutional, this is unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. And then the states have their own version of reality. Is that I mean, that's pretty like law that they say, okay, that's cool. The feds say one thing. I mean, look at marijuana is a good example. Like the feds say, yeah, it's not that legal. And the states are like, yeah, you can sell it down the street, whatever. Right? Like, so it must be confusing sometimes where you get clients that come in and go, hey, I heard on the news that I can go kick my tenant out, hasn't paid me in 6 months. And, and you have to be the bearer of good news and say, well, actually,
you can't, right?
Well, that's not right. What do you do? Because you've told me some people and you're starting to see more people, right? Come like, look, this has gone on so long now that I'm in jeopardy of getting foreclosed on because there was a foreclosure moratorium, as I understood, as well as a rental moratorium, eviction moratorium. So now with the eviction or the foreclosure moratorium being lifted, puts people into kind of this weird place where I owe somebody money and they want it. Somebody owes me money, but I can't get it. This is why we're talking, right? Yeah,
it is why we're talking. So the foreclosure moratorium applied to government-backed loans. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA loans, those sort of loans. The mortgage holders were required to offer forbearance or repayment plans. I believe the window for taking advantage of those repayment plans is closing soon. I believe it's at the end of September or has closed. But the president, the governor, everyone is asking, pleading, begging with businesses, landlords, banks to have grace and mercy because the funds are there. We just have to get them out to people. And so I haven't heard of a huge wave of foreclosures happening yet. I suspect it's because no one wants to be that headline maker, right? Like no bank wants to have, the cover of all the news articles saying so-and-so's foreclosing on everyone, even though all these billions of dollars of repayment assistance is just sitting in the bank waiting for states to hand it out.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, right? So often there is aid, there's federal programs, state programs, local programs even, that are available. But for the layman, the average person, to understand the level of applications and paperwork and, like you said earlier, the many hoops that you have to jump to access that money seems to always be the root of the inefficiency, right? That's the challenge. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fair. And it's made more complicated by the fact that many state workers are still working from home. So in the past, where you could call an office and get a human, you now get a recording that says, hey, we're working from home, send in an email, do all of this stuff electronically. Our response times are delayed. And then you add the additional kind of limiting factor of thousands of people trying to access these funds at the same time. You know, if you and I were to walk through a door together, maybe we could walk through it together at the same time, but it's a lot easier if we walk through it one at a time.
Right, and the understanding there, and it works in all levels of government. I tried to get a multi-season deer tag. They had like 2,000 available in the whole state. And I'm like, they said, I talked to them before. They're like, yeah, go into a store. That's the best way. Like go into Kelly's Hardware and say, hey, I need to buy this tag to go hunting. And that sounds like a good idea. But I showed up. So did a whole bunch of other people. And the person behind the counter at the hardware store goes like, why are all these people in camo here? What in the heck is going on? And then they go, well, why don't you call the 800 number? Because that's the way to do it. And then we're all like, busy. And then all of a sudden the tags all sell out. And you're like, what? I was here. You can imagine that's just one little tiny level of government at the Fish and Game Department. And now we're talking about people's livelihoods and their homes. Whether they're renting or whether they own a home, that's their home. And so, man, what an emotional concept. So, hey, when we come back in the second segment, we're going to dive a little deeper. Is that fair?
Fair.
I like it.
Fair enough.
Be right back with Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and friends.
Keller Williams, you make dreams come true. Home sweet home, home sweet home, your home sweet home.
Hey, this is Russ McClellan, operating partner and designated broker of Keller Williams Realty, North Central Washington. Hey, I'm excited to say we are growing at an unprecedented rate. We're almost 70 real estate brokers and popping about 3 deals a day in some cases. It's really pretty fun. And the reason I wanted to do an ad today was about our people. The culture of Keller Williams is really simple this. We believe in an abundant mindset, not a scarcity mindset. What does that mean? Well, although we're competitive, we all go out and try to get some similar listings. And with almost 70 people, you might think that that's a problem. But in reality, with an abundant mindset, we know that for us to win, you don't have to lose. With our creative marketing that is unbelievable, with our operating system Command, we're reaching literally hundreds of thousands of people instantly. So if you're interested in selling or buying with one of our agents, trust me, you won't be disappointed. Give us a call at our office, 509-888-0038, or email me direct at russ@frontlinechelan.com. Hey, this is Russ McClellan with Keller Williams. I want to talk to you about something. Do you feel stuck? Do you feel the financial pressures of the COVID virus? That was fun, wasn't it? I'll tell you what, real estate can be a game changer for you, and I'm here to help you. If you want to give me a call at 509-888-0038, I want to talk about your life and getting unstuck. We are growing rapidly. We're the fastest growing real estate company in all of North Central Washington. Give us a call. I want to help you. 509-888-0038.
You're listening to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and friends. And here's Russ.
ECs and Starleigh. How's everybody doing in the land of COVID?
Great.
We're doing fantastic over here.
Yeah, ECs is our new team leader, rocking and rolling, recruiting like a crazy woman.
Yes.
You know why? Because we like to help people.
Indeed.
Very strange that way, being integrity-based in the time of COVID where a lot of people aren't so integrity-based, or at least they're very judgmental, right? Have you guys noticed that?
Yes.
It's like I chew spearmint gum, you chew Hubba Bubba, and we hate each other. For God's sakes. I mean, really, it's getting to be that stupid. Like, so here's the deal, people. If people are vaccinated, love them. If people are not vaccinated, love them, right? We need a little more Bob Marley in our life.
We love everybody.
All right. So here's the thing. We're talking about eviction, speaking of good topics. What happens when you own a house, or 2 or 3 or 10 as an investor, and you have renters in that, and they've agreed to pay you rent? And for whatever reason, hardship, or maybe just out of convenience, they don't pay you. And you're sitting there going, uh-oh, now I'm getting behind. My credit is being destroyed. So what do you do? Well, that's a great question because it's not an easy answer. the idea that non-payment of rent was a good reason to evict people has been convoluted in the land of COVID because of hardship, right? And grace and empathy and forgiveness are all important components, but sometimes the reality is you're gonna suffer as a landlord. And so what we're trying to do today with Starleigh, who is an attorney in Florida, who's transitioning to being an attorney in Washington, right here with Jeffers, Danielson, Sonn, and Aylward. Fantastic law firm, by the way.
They are, yes.
Pat Aylward and Bob Sterios have helped me out over the years a lot. We had a lot of fun together. Great people, just great people. And you guys have experts in just about everything, don't you?
We do, yes. It's pretty amazing, and they have been wonderful in my transition. I feel very grateful to be part of that firm.
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
it's for a smaller community. I think to have a law firm like that, headquartered here and with integrity-based people like the partners are, it's cool. So Starleigh, you're getting. I say transitioning because there's some rules you have to get licensed in Washington. So you're technically not an attorney in Washington yet.
Correct.
But like in a couple of nanoseconds, that'll be covered. So what we're doing is we're trying to figure out or trying to navigate today on the show of what do you do? What can landlords do, or what is the law right now? Because I think between the federal law and the state law, between your neighbor down the street and the farmer down the road, and social media, there's only about 500,000 people telling you different things, right?
Correct.
That's a big number, by the way.
That is a big
whatever I
number.
just said, it's a big number.
It is. You're right.
All right, help me out. What can we do?
Okay, so if we're speaking specifically about evicting a tenant because they haven't paid rent, there is a new procedure that is required by the legislature, and it's called basically like the bridge law, and it bridges the gap between the eviction moratorium, which expired September, how many days are in September? 30th. And it bridges the gap between the eviction moratorium, which expired September 30th, and kind of the end of this emergency, whenever that may be. The law that deals specifically with evictions for non-payment of rent is only in effect until mid-2023. Sorry. And so basically what it requires is landlords must offer tenants the opportunity to engage in a reasonable repayment program. And the legislature has defined reasonable as no more than 1/3 of your monthly rent added to rent as it comes up in the future. So just for like easy numbers, if you're paying $1,200 a month in rent, one, I want to know where you live because that's really affordable rent. But if your rent's only $1,200 a month, the landlord cannot add more than $400 to your rent because that's 1/3 of $1,200.
You mean today? Like they could say tomorrow, next month, I'm gonna add $400 to your rent.
You have to give 30 days notice.
Okay.
So you have to offer the repayment program. The tenant has 14 days to decide if he or she wants to even participate in it. If they do, you can't say, like, you couldn't contact a tenant on September 30th and say, starting October 1st, if you want to participate in this repayment program, your rent's going to be raised by 1/3. You have to give them 14 days to consider it and then 30 days notice before it's implemented.
So if somebody hasn't paid rent in a year, so let's say, to make the math easy in my head, $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 they owe. The landlord can say, you can pay me 1/3 of $1,000 in this example on top of your rent up to repay the $12,000 that you owe me in back rent.
Yes.
And if they give them that 30 days notice or 14 days notice, give them 30 days notice and then they have 14 days to respond.
They have 14 days to respond, and that the actual offer, say we were going to offer it to someone October 1st, in theory, you could add it to the rent on November 1st, because that gives them not only 14 days to respond, but 30 days notice that the rent increase is coming.
And so I guess there's like a crossroads there, right? At that point, the tenant's going to say, okay. Or the tenant's going to say, dude, I can barely afford, I haven't worked in 6 months.
Right.
I'm a server. My restaurant's closed. Whatever the story is, right? Because there's a lot of hardship out there. So, or they could say, like I said earlier about the Ferrari, they could say, hey, well, I had to buy that new Ferrari to be closer to my family. And so therefore I can't afford both payments. So sorry, I can't pay that extra third.
Yeah.
What do I do now? What happens then?
So, you also have to offer them the opportunity or tell them about this program called the Eviction Resolution Program. It's basically mediation. And the idea of this mediation program is that it will help landlords and tenants come to an agreement, either to reduce the rent or create a repayment program or whatever. The idea is that landlords and tenants come together kind of collaboratively to solve this problem of unpaid rent. Now, if the tenant says, sorry, I'm not paying, because they very well can, I'm not paying, I'm not participating in this repayment program, I don't care about the mediation, then at that point, the landlord can start an eviction process for non-payment of rent. That's kind of the easiest thing, right? Like, maybe landlords want tenants to not participate in this program, because then you can just get them out. If they participate, you have to obviously give them the opportunity to engage in this repayment program. Then, say they 6 months make their repayment program rent payments on time. If at that point they default, then the landlord can say, okay, well, we agreed to this repayment program. You didn't hold up your end of the bargain. Now I'm going to file for eviction. But if the landlord ever wants to get the money back, like an enforceable judgment against the tenant, they have to walk down this path. They have to offer the repayment plan. They have to tell the tenant about the eviction resolution program. They can't just say, forget it, I don't care, I'm just going to, find some other reason to evict them and then go after the money. The law will not allow that right now.
Yeah, just so people are tuning in and hearing you talk, you're an attorney in Florida. You're going to be an attorney in Washington very soon. You're transitioning with Jeffers, Danielson, Sonn, and Aylward. And if you want more information, you can call them, right?
Yes.
So their number is 509-662-3685. I just wanted to make sure we said that, because it sounds confusing.
It is confusing.
And I can only imagine, and I've been in real estate a couple of days, like 3 decades.
Yeah.
And it's confusing. So I can only imagine what it's like. Wait a minute, dude. I have to do what?
Right.
And that's the craziness, right? Because not only, depending on your perspective, right? And at the end of the day, the Me, Myself, and I program is usually alive and well in people, and they can feel the pain. That, like an investor that was nice and let people hang out and not pay rent, say, I'm okay with that now, but at some point I got to pay the piper, as they say. And now those people are saying no. And now you're telling me as an investor, I have to call a lawyer. I got to go find some paperwork. I got to do this. If I do this wrong, I do that wrong. As we come to the end of the second segment, one of the things I want to get into is that you said something in our meetings before today that was interesting to me, and that is you cannot contract your rights away.
Right.
And because, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a creative thinker, and I'm like, well, why don't we just do this deal? And then you sign here, and then I'll sign there, and then onward and upward we go. And you're like, no, Russ. No, Russ. That's why you're a realtor, not an attorney. All right, so we come right back. We're going to talk more about the eviction process, your rights and responsibilities as landlords. I appreciate Starleigh and EC's hanging out with me today, and we'll be right back with Home Sweet Home with Russ, McClellan, and Friends.
Keller Williams, you make dreams come true. Home sweet home, home sweet home.
Hey, this is Russ McClellan, operating partner and designated broker of Keller Williams Realty, North Central Washington. Hey, I'm excited to say we are growing at an unprecedented rate. We're almost 70 real estate brokers and popping about 3 deals a day in some cases. It's really pretty fun. And the reason I wanted to do an ad today was about our people. The culture of Keller Williams is really simple this. We believe in an abundant mindset, not a scarcity mindset. What does that mean? Well, although we're competitive, we all go out and try to get some similar listings. And with almost 70 people, you might think that that's a problem. But in reality, with an abundant mindset, we know that for us to win, you don't have to lose. With our creative marketing that is unbelievable, with our operating system Command, we're reaching literally hundreds of thousands of people instantly. So if you're interested in selling or buying with one of our agents, trust me, you won't be disappointed. Give us a call at our office, 509-888-0038, or email me direct at russ@frontlinechelan.com. Hi, this is Russ McClellan, designated broker and operating partner of Keller Williams Realty NCW. You know, we have almost 70 agents and growing rapidly. We're almost a legit company now with over 2.5 years experience. The good news is this: if you're thinking about changing your life, my goal and my mission to you is to help you transform the life that you deserve and that you want, using real estate as the vehicle to do that. What does that mean? Well, it means whatever you want it to mean. If you want to work part-time, I'll show you how to do it. If you want to work full-time, I'll show you how to do it. And I'm also willing to show and demonstrate our commitment to you and our conviction to our company and transparency by giving you any of the numbers of any of the 70 people that work at Keller Williams. We're a family, we care about each other, and we care about you. So if you want to change your life, you want to get into real estate and have some fun, let's get together and talk. 509-888-0038. Give me a call anytime. You can also call my cell phone at 509-470-2416.
You're tuned to Russ McClellan and Friends on the real estate show Home Sweet Home. Let's get back to Russ.
I appreciate everybody tuning in. We're talking about evictions in the land of COVID. Landlord-Tenant Act. For cause, not for cause. Cutting deals. Forbearances. Moratoriums. There's so many cool words that COVID has brought to
So
us.
many cool words.
I have Starleigh Smith and EC's in the house with me talking about this. Starleigh, so somebody's not paying rent. Is it fair to say that if we're going to expedite a solution, selling your place might be not a bad way to go?
Totally. It's not a bad way to go.
Tell me how that works. What do you have to do?
So there's a totally separate provision that allows for evictions if the landowner is going to sell their property. And that is under part of the new Landlord-Tenant Act that was promulgated this year by the state legislature. Under this new Tenant Act, the legislature is requiring landlords, if they have a lease that is month-to-month or rolled into a month-to-month lease, which many leases in Washington fall into that category, then landlords can only evict for certain enumerated reasons. They're called for cause reasons, like good cause reasons. One of those good causes is the property owner is trying to sell the house.
Okay.
And so when that happens, the landlord is able to give a notice to vacate, and they have to give, I just want to make sure that I get it right, 90 days advanced written notice to the tenant.
That you're going to sell, you're going to put it up for sale, or that you're going to close?
That you're going to put it up for sale. So landlords can do two things, right? When they're going to sell a house, they can get the tenant out before they sell it, or they can sell it with a tenant. And in the past, I think when landlords were selling investment properties, if someone's buying an investment property, it's kind of a value added that your investment property comes with a tenant, right? Because it makes money right away. You don't have to find a tenant. You kind of inherit this money-making proposition. Well, now in the days of COVID, with the moratorium, with all of this unpaid rent that's happening, and all the hoops you have to jump through to get the back rent, I think it's kind of become a subtracted value for an investment property to come with a tenant. You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, they may not pay.
They may not pay. And by law, the landlord, the prior landlord's not allowed to tell a new landlord about unpaid rent during COVID.
Yeah, that's kind of does that fall under like a slander type? I don't know if slander is the right word, but kind of like if you had an employee that was, you terminated their employment and then somebody called you, you got to be real careful about what you say.
I don't think it falls under that same type of category. I think that the legislature really is just trying to like protect people who face genuine hardships and who genuinely lost their jobs and didn't try to kind of take advantage of the situation. And while there are people who may take advantage of the situation,
those Ferrari buyers,
the Ferrari buyers
Yeah.
may choose not to pay their rent. I suspect that there are a lot of people who genuinely suffered a hardship and are genuinely having a hard time digging themselves out of it.
Absolutely, there is. And one of the things I want to kind of interject this. I don't know how many times a year this happens, but it's a numerous amount of times that people have been told they can't buy a house.
Yeah.
By a family member, by a bank, no offense. Somebody that said you need 20% down to buy a house, or your credit score sucks, you'll never be able to buy a house, or you went bankrupt, you got divorced, you were late on your JCPenney card, whatever the myth is. And I'm here to tell you that maybe that's true. Never is a long time, and I don't buy that part of the equation. So maybe give us a call, literally, because we want to help you buy a house. And you might find yourself in a position where you haven't been able to pay rent, but we can still get you into a house, right? Because things do change. You know, they always say, you know, tough times don't last, tough people do. Well, one of the things we're going to do at Keller Williams is make sure we counsel people, and we have allied forces in the lending game that will develop a plan with us. ECs can spearhead that. I can do it. Luke, just about any one of our real estate brokers, and there's pushing 80 of these crazy animals running around town. So we can help you if you're a tenant. And we get it, right? And we have lenders that get it. There are a lot of lenders out there that will tell you something that is not true. Like, you'll never buy a house. I call crap. That's crap.
Yeah,
Yep.
and bad business, right?
Bad business. and not to pick on big banks, but when you're a national bank, they have a lot of restrictions and a lot of things they're told they can't say and have to say. And they try to have one law for 50 states, and it makes it very, very challenging. Local banks, very different story. And mortgage companies, very different story. There's all kinds of programs with zero down that we can get you in that are really pretty amazing. And you have all-time low rates. So you're in so many cases, like you said earlier, about where's that $1,200 a month? In this town, you can literally, with some creativity, buy a house and have a lower monthly payment than renting. And people are like, I don't believe you. I'm like, well, call me and I'll prove it.
Let's have a chat.
Let's have a chat. I'm telling you, I really am excited about helping people that are going through tough times, right? Because it's okay to ask for help, right? And whether they're calling the law office or whether they're calling us, we're coming from a place of integrity, coming from a place of navigating these crazy things that we're all facing. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, I can't go talk to any mentors that I can find that had a world pandemic. So it's like, what'd you do in the last world pandemic? They're all dead. Like, it was like 1918. Like, nobody's alive. So I have to figure out what are we going to do and to help our community. And that's why we're partnering together and putting on these workshops. And just so you guys know, this probably will air after we have done a workshop, but we're going to most likely video it. And we're going to be able to make sure that people can get to the workshop that we're going to be holding about this topic. So people can come with some questions. We can figure out a website where we can maybe interact with some of these, but this is crap. You know, like, there's a lot of emotion involved, right? We kind of can sit on the sidelines and look in and go, you know, pragmatically, or this is analytically how this works. But in reality, these are people's homes.
Totally.
Right. And it's not like there's an abundance of rentals.
They're not.
No, and you know that moving from Florida, right?
I do, yes.
Florida prices are a little less money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sucks right now. We're down about 75% in inventory from a year ago.
Yeah.
But there's some things we're working on, right? There's some things we're working on to help people. A lot of things. And you just have to give us a call at Keller Williams, and we'll help you, or call Starleigh at the law office, right?
Call the law office.
Call the law office. Say, hey, give me some help. Yeah, so what happens next? All right, let's go down this path. Like, okay, I want to sell my home.
Yes.
Again, just kind of speaking like maybe I'd be creative if I was a landlord and say, hey, I'm going to sell it to my LLC. Can I do that?
If you want to sell it to your LLC, you might have to jump through a couple of hoops, because the new landlord-tenant law, it requires not only if you evict someone because you're going to sell the house, you have to put it on the market, and you have to put it on the market at a reasonable rate. It has to be on the market within 30 days of the tenant vacating the dwelling, and it has to be advertised at a reasonable price with a realty agency, or listed at a reasonable price on a multiple listing service like MLS. We all know what that is, I hope. But the law has also created something called a rebuttable presumption. And this is a special thing that Washington has created. The rebuttable presumption is if the tenant that you evicted sees that your house is not on the market within 30 days, or within 90 days of the date of them leaving the house, you have taken it off the market and rented it to someone else, they can tell the court that you evicted them in bad faith, and then you have to pay them damages. Now, obviously, it's not like this catch-all, right? It's not like, haha, I got you, I'm going to go get your money. As the property owner, you get to go to the court and say, look, it wasn't on the market within 30 days because I had to change the carpet and they punched a hole in the wall, or whatever. Like, if you have reasons why it didn't get on the market within 30 days, you can go to the court and tell the court that. But the burden's on you to prove that you evicted them in good faith. Right.
So arm's length deals is what the law is trying to prevent. Right, like they're trying to stop a landlord from just pretending they're going to sell it, or selling it to my brother. I don't want it on the open market. I just want to do a deal so I can get my tenant out.
Yeah.
And then my brother will sell it back to me, and that's not good. Right? Those are rules that are like not so good.
Yeah.
At least that's the goal of the law, like to try to be fair to everybody.
Correct.
So if you're going to be sly, you might want to get a lawyer.
You might.
Generally speaking. If you're a sly dog, get a lawyer. It might be helpful
if
for
you're
you.
not a sly dog, get a lawyer.
Yeah, if you're not a sly dog, get a lawyer. So it's confusing. Imagine that, the state of Washington being confusing. I bet you were shocked when you came to Washington. You were like reading the Landlord-Tenant Act, huh?
Yeah, I had never kind of done landlord-tenant law in Florida, and so this was my first kind of dipping my toe into the area. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, it's complex, to say the least. So it's interesting information, right? And things seem to change. So I guess the recommendation is get some advice.
Yeah.
Get some help to navigate through this process. So you can get a hold of the law firm Jeffers, Danielson, Sonn, and Aylward at 509-662-3685, or you can call our office at 888-0038. And I appreciate you guys coming in. All right.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with our last segment, and Michael Maher and Prime Lending.
Keller Williams, you make dreams come true.
Hey, this is Russ McClellan with Keller Williams. I want to talk to you about something. Do you feel stuck? Do you feel the financial pressures of the COVID virus? That was fun, wasn't it? I'll tell you what, real estate can be a game changer for you, and I'm here to help you. If you want to give me a call at 509-888-0038, I want to talk about your life and getting unstuck. We are growing rapidly. We're the fastest growing real estate company in all of North Central Washington. Give us a call. I want to help you. 509-888-0038.
You're listening to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. And here's Russ.
Hey, welcome back to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. Man, land of COVID conversations kind of never cease to exist. And it's getting more complex by the minute in some ways. In other ways, people like my friend Michael Maher and Prime Lending and Sharon Crockett. I got Michael on the line. How you doing, Michael?
Doing well. Excited to spread some knowledge to all of our listeners.
Yeah, and what I was saying is, things are complex, it seems like, in the land of COVID, but also they're not as complex if you get the right professional expert advisors in your corner. And one of the things we talked about off air, but perhaps we need to readdress is, what is the process like to buy a house? Because there are a lot of people in the game as tenants that can be buyers, right? And they just don't know it, or they've been given bad advice, or they have a myth around down payment or credit, or I got divorced, so I can't buy a house, or I missed a JCPenney card payment, so I can't buy a house, or you name it, right? There's all these myths, but you're the advocate for them and a counselor for them. So even if that's true, what I love about what you guys do at Prime Lending is you work with people. Imagine that. So today, could you kind of go through, like, what are the pillars of getting qualified, or what is pretend I don't know anything, or our listeners, they don't know anything. What do we do? And we want to buy a house.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to go back to the basics a little bit, so people can actually understand what a pre-approval actually is. And by working with a team like ours at Prime Lending with Sharon and I, that we can not only get your pre-approval taken care of, but also, even if you're not quite ready to buy a home, we can be very creative and think outside the box to hopefully create a plan for you and ultimately get you to your goal. So think of a pre-approval, this is how I like to explain it to my clients, as a circle. And you have that circle split into 3 even parts. You have your income, which is money you brought in from a normal W-2 job. It could be from self-employment income from a business that you own. It can even be a pension or Social Security you receive for retirement, military benefits. It can be dividend payments from a brokerage account or withdrawals from a regular 401k or Roth IRA. So all of those kind of fall into the income category. The second part of this would be your credit or your credit score. First and foremost, do you have a credit score? Do you know what it is? Are you on all of your accounts? Are they in good standing? Do you have any collections or bankruptcies, foreclosures, late payments? Do you need to be put on a credit repair plan possibly to help boost your scores up to an acceptable level so that you can qualify? These are just some of the questions that we're going to ask when it comes to credit, and we can ultimately guide you through the process of determining how your credit looks, and if it needs to be adjusted or fine-tuned, we can help along with that as well. And that's the second part. The third part of the circle is going to be your assets, also known as your down payment. Where is your down payment coming from? And this can come in so many different ways, and a lot of ways in which I don't think people even think about. Just to name a few, are money that you've saved up from working. It can be from retirement accounts that you've had, whether they're in current use that you're contributing to, or old ones from a job that you've left possibly. You can get gifts from relatives. Sometimes you can get gifts from close friends. These have a little bit more restrictions to them, but it is possible, and it just has to be documented correctly. It can be money from documented items you've sold, cars, boats, motorcycles. I mean, I've had people sell guns, things like that. It just has to be documented. It's easier if it has a title to it. So like a vehicle of such, that's a little bit easier to document. And then also on that, does the loan program that you're trying to get approved for even require a down payment? We have quite a few loan programs that are zero down or let you borrow the money at 0% interest for 30 years, no strings attached. So these, between income, credit, and assets, that circle completes the pre-approval process. Now, to give an example, let's say you have, and where the creativity comes in, let's say you have 2 of those boxes checked. You've got credit. You're at 780. You're dialed. You make all your payments on time. You have a good, long-standing history of different types of accounts, and you're good to go. You've been saving up, so you have some money in the bank. You've got your down payment taken care of. But let's say that you own a business, and in 2020 you wrote off a little bit too much so that you don't have as much qualifying income as you may like. and you can't quite get that income up to where you want to get qualified for the amount that you're requesting. So we come in and we say, okay, let's think about this. Can we amend your tax return? How much money do you have in the bank? Do you have a bunch of it from writing stuff off and you've just kind of saved it? We've helped people dial in the exact amount that they need to amend their returns. And yeah, they'll owe some back taxes, but they can also up their qualifying income. Another thing that I don't think people realize is that you can get a co-signer, and this has been very popular lately for people who have been self-employed. They have family members or even friends in some cases come alongside them, and they're very close. And obviously, a disclaimer on this is you want to make sure that you discuss everything with that person who you're wanting to possibly co-sign with, because things could get complicated. But we've had many success stories. So they come alongside, and maybe their credit and assets are fine, or maybe we don't need that as much. But they have some income that's a little bit more regular. We can use that income along with your credit and assets to help boost up your approval amount and get you to where you want to be. So that's just one example. Everyone's going to be different on their approval, but it comes to your assets, so your down payment, your income, how much money you're bringing in a month, and your credit score. Where does that fall within? Does it need help, or is it dialed in, ready to go? And once we have all three of those boxes checked, or we can figure out a way to get each one checked, then you're officially pre-approved.
So, Michael, that's all good stuff for sure. And I think, like most things, step by step gets you to the goal that you want. It's not, that you have to eat everything in one day, right? So you can start somewhere, and then you'll lay out a plan for them. Like, let's say my credit's not where it needs to be. You'll show them, well, it makes sense. This is what happened. And there's ways around that, right? So what is the process? Like, what do you recommend? Do people email you? They call you? Is there a website? Break it down into the very basics. How do we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the first response is just to give me a call at 425-760-8824. We have a local office in Wenatchee. You can call me or text me at that number, and that's when the discussion starts. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, where are you at in the process? What are your goals? Where are you at currently? And then we start to break down your personal financial situation and go from there to see what best course of action needs to be taken. Maybe you're ready to buy right then and there, but maybe you need a 6-month time period to get everything in order. And we set you on a plan so that you can follow that and turn around. And if you do follow exactly what we say, typically it's going to lead to you being able to purchase a home, or at least being able to get out there and shop.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to stress, we've been working together now several years, Michael, and with you and Sharon. There's two things that you're not going to do. One is, and I know this from personal experience from watching you with many of our clients, you're not going to judge them and their past, and you're not going to talk about their situation with anybody else. So it's going to be a confidential conversation without judgment. Is that fair?
Yep, that's correct.
Because
the conversations we have with each other are 100% confidential.
Because I think there's a lot of people go through things in life, right? With our new era of social media and everybody living a perfect life online, they always have the best car, the best looking spouse, the best job, the best this, even if it's crap, right?
It's always the best.
Yeah, it's always the best. So when we look at our own life, we're like, man, I don't look near as good as Johnny or Sally. I feel like a lesser person. And here, the reality is we all have baggage, right? We all have a history. We all have scar tissue of life. And so what I want to relay is that it's important that you just don't fight that fight alone and put your head in the sand like an ostrich, right? Like, be open, be vulnerable. And I know how hard it is. And I just want you to know that Michael's not the kind of guy that's going to ridicule you. He's not going to judge you. He's not going to, he has accomplished things for people. I just wish we could tell all the stories that had these limiting beliefs and they don't want to make that first call. And it's not a scam. I mean, we're here. The reason we've grown to be, the largest real estate company in North Central Washington as fast as we have is we 100% care about people. And we don't associate with people that don't care about people, right? There's a lot of people I won't work with as a real estate broker, but Michael's not one of them. So I just want everybody to realize that. Michael, what can you say to them? I mean, what can you say to people that are afraid? Or I got divorced and my ex didn't pay the bill, and it looks like but I pay my bills, damn it. Well, what would you say to them as far as just the emotional component of exposing one to history to someone else?
Yeah, and to be honest, when it comes to this job, honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm more of a professional counselor than I am a numbers guy, because people come with all sorts of emotional, for lack of a better term, baggage that, they're going through some stuff in their life. And when I can come alongside them and just say, okay, let's just take a deep breath. Where are you at? You just went through a hard divorce. And you know what? Sometimes it just takes a 10-minute phone call of them completely spilling out their guts about the divorce. Now, I won't give advice as far as that's concerned, but it's just by listening to them and letting them explain the situation, it can help me understand a little bit more from where they're coming from and how I can present a plan for them a little better. Maybe they need a little more hand holding. Maybe they're like an engineer type, which typically people are more cut and dry. They don't want all the emotional stuff. I want my numbers and here's what it is. So just by listening to their story and listening to where they're coming from, I can typically gauge how they need, what kind of service they need, and what kind of plan that they're looking for ultimately.
Yeah, you're amazing.
And just not be afraid of that conversation either, because I can't tell you, like you said, I wish I could share all the stories of children who are taking care of some parents as far as, some medical issues, and all of a sudden they're homeowners and they never thought that was possible. Just people in some of the hardest, difficult situations ever, and their dreams coming true, and they're no longer paying rent, and they're building equity, and they're creating wealth, and hopefully generational wealth in the future as well.
All right, man. Well, we're wrapping up this segment. Thanks, Michael. Sincere. That's what you are. You're integrity-based and you're sincere. Get outside, have some fun, be nice to people. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you next time.
It's a brand new day, just came my way. I bought a new home, yeah, home, sweet home, oh, home, sweet home. Keller Williams, I love my dream home. Yeah, I love my dream home. Home, sweet home.